What's up, everybody? I'm Rick.
And I'm Anna, and welcome to our review of the 1939 movie Wuthering Heights. Come have fun with us, and don't forget to subscribe. Released on March 24th, 1939, Wuthering Heights is a Samuel Goldwyn Productions romantic period drama film based on the 1847 novel of the same name by Emily Bronte. The film tells the story of a poor boy of unknown origins who is rescued from poverty and taken in by the Earnshaw family, where he develops an intense relationship with his younger foster sister, Cathy. So Rick, what did you think of this movie?
I thought it was interesting. Interesting is the first word that comes to mind, right? It's not a feel-good movie, definitely, right?
Definitely not.
As a matter of fact, by the end of it, you're pretty much, you and everyone inside the movie pretty much depressed. But it's interesting in a sense that there's some very interesting characterization, very interesting choices of where the story goes. And also, and I guess that's more common in a book than in a movie, but since this is a movie based on a book, then it's normal. A total lack of trying to make things right or better, right?
Yeah. I have to say, not much redemption for characters
exactly.
either. Yeah. I mean, this movie is based on a classic of the English literature. So I think you would expect for it to have this kind of depth. It's what I would expect from a movie like this. Particularly, and I have to say, I didn't really think of it in that way, but after reading the synopsis, Heathcliff's interest for Cathy, when really, if you think about it, she's like his sister.
Yeah,
it gives
I never
a whole
thought about
nother...
it in the...
Yeah, I didn't think about
yeah,
it like that when I watched the movie. It seemed like he was just someone that they took in, like,
because
to take care of,
he's
but...
an outsider, right? He's
Yeah.
presented as an outsider. They treat him as such. And so I guess apart from the dad who wanted them to all, right, act as if they were family, I never felt throughout the movie that they did that. So it didn't jump at me that, oh wait, this is kind of weird, right, as a relationship.
I think the way the characters were built was extremely interesting because both main characters are extremely flawed. And so that creates for an interesting dynamic between them.
Mm-hmm.
Because while you don't really feel like they necessarily have, a good character, they do have this true love, this like very passionate, deep love for each other.
I would go further than that and say that with the exception of one character, all the characters are flawed. And the one character that is not, right, he's the one who dies, the dad.
Right.
Very early on in the story. He could have been the moral compass, to guide these three kids who are all mess throughout life. But since he's not there, he's taken out of the equation pretty early on. They move on to, grow up however they grow up. And for each of them, it's not in a good way. On the theme of love, I think it's an interesting concept or question, right, that is asked throughout the movie because there are other characters, right, who claim to be in love or run in love or who talks of love about and between these two characters, Cathy and Heathcliff. And all of the time, they always push it down, right? Whenever Cathy says, no, I'm in love with my new husband, which they seem to be, happy together, exactly. Heathcliff's with a stroke of his hands like, no, that's not true love. He couldn't ever love you the way I love you. But
true.
How can you judge that, right?
Yeah.
From your point of view, just because he's not, as openly passionate about it, does it really mean that he doesn't love her as much, if not more than you, right? He was also very attached to her and very sad when she died, right?
Right, and we see him being very caring and even accepting all of her flaws and forgiving her in many situations. So
exactly.
I think that is such a show of love and affection.
Yeah. After she went off on him, like the first time he was insulting Heathcliff,
right.
He still came back, right? He wanted her that much. And then on the other side, we have Isabella, who keeps claiming like that she loves Heathcliff. And I feel like there's definitely something there because she stays with him.
Even after Cathy dies and...
her brother asked her to come back. She could have been like, oh, Heathcliff, you're a nightmare. I'm going back to my brother. But no, she stays at the beginning and / the end of the movie. You see that she's still there years later. And so can they really claim that they have this monopoly on true love, right?
Yeah, that is true. I think maybe just because whatever they felt for each other...
They didn't feel for anyone else.
It was, but they were also like reciprocating it. to each other.
Yeah.
I think one thing that the movie managed to do very well, that maybe we sometimes criticized in other movie adaptations of big novels, stories that span many years, is that here you can definitely see the evolution of it. You see them as children, and you can see where their love sparks from. And you can see it being like sweet and innocent in the beginning, when they're children, like playing on the hills, pretending they have a castle. And then as they grow older, they're kind of like torn away from their imaginary world, and they have to like come into this real world where their love just doesn't fit in. I feel like they did it very well in honestly very few scenes.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation a lot, right, with movies like Anthony Adverse and others, where it feels like there's a piece missing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure here they cut a bunch from the book too. And if you've read the book, you're probably like, oh no, they cut so much. But the role of an adaptation like this, in my opinion, is to make someone who doesn't know the source material not realize that A, there is a source material, and B, it's been truncated, right?
Yeah, that there are pieces missing.
Right. Which a lot of these other movies, Anthony Adverse and others, don't do, right? I'm watching the movie and I'm thinking, wow, they cut off a lot because the story is jumble mess. You feel it watching the movie, even if you haven't read the book. Here you don't feel it.
Yes,
Here
you don't
like
feel it.
There's a logical evolution to all the scenes. Everything that's there is there for a reason, and it doesn't feel like there's a huge chunk.
And we are giving all the pieces that we need in order to understand everything. And also the fact that they managed to give so much attention to all the characters, in my opinion. Cathy's brother, even the servant, woman in the house, like, they don't have as much screen time, but when they do, you see them and you understand them. It's very complex.
Yeah, they're characters. They're not just background people that comes back.
Exactly. So I think this would be a good moment to move on and talk some more about these characters, because I really find them very interesting. First off, the movie was directed by William Wyler, whom we know of because he was also the director of Dadsworth, Dead End, and Jezebel. It seems like the director was the source of some conflicts on the sets, because apparently he had a very unique, very uncommunicative style of directing. Apparently there was one scene involving the actor playing the main male character Heathcliff that was shot 72 times. With each take, the director would just say again without giving any feedback as to how to do it different. So eventually the actor said, for God's sake, I did it sitting down, I did it with a smile, with a smirk, I did it scratching my ear, I did it with my back to the camera, how do you want me to do it? And the director just answered, I want it better. So that was his style. I can definitely tell why this would be a source of conflict.
Look into camera.
He wants you to tell, look in camera. Okay?
And the movie stars Laurence Olivier as Heathcliff. What did you think of his performance?
I thought it was great. I thought you really felt through the screen how much bile and misery was emanating from the character, right?
Yeah, as a grown-up, you can definitely see how tortured he was by the childhood that he had.
But like this desire for revenge, right, which he proclaims several times in the movie, right? I curse you, you'll see, I'll destroy your house. You can see it in his eyes, right? You can see it in his demeanor when he's just standing there, and you feel like, you hate the persons around you, right?
And as we mentioned before, how the characters don't really have much redemption. You would usually see a character like this finding his redemption in, the one true love that he has, but you don't feel it here either. Even that love that he has, he taints it by the way he uses it to fuel his anger.
Yeah. And a way both of them, right, are kind of, at time, deliberately hurting each other, which, in the end, you have to wonder, right, did they not cause their own misery, right? It could have been a much different story if they were not so hard-headed, let's say.
Right.
But yeah, he is one of the less redeemed character, in my opinion, because even she, on her deathbed, at least, apologized for what happened, and she's like, we should have done this and that. But he, to the end, right? Until he dies with a ghost, is so full of anger, right? Even when the movie starts, he looks like such a miserable person.
Right. The movie also stars Merle Oberon as Catherine Earnshaw Linton, whom we've seen before in The Private Life of Henry VIII. What did you think of her performance?
I thought she was generally very good, except for one scene. And a lot of time, these are the hard scenes to do, but the death scene, like, that was too much, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. The death scene didn't feel as convincing as the rest of her performance, which, by the way, was amazing, in my opinion. You can definitely feel the conflict within her, between her love for Heathcliff and her desire to, like, enter this, better world, this higher society, with her husband.
Yeah. But again, a husband that is, all in all, a good guy, right?
Right.
He has some mean comments toward Heathcliff, but the rest of the time, he's, a good husband. And so it would have been very easy for the story to match her with someone horrible, and then it's easy for her to make the choice, right, of leaving him and going back to Heathcliff.
But I feel like he represents, what people of his status were like, where even if they were nice people, they would still look at those below them with some sort
disdain.
Of... Yeah, exactly.
He also represents what she wanted, right? When she was young and she told him, like, get rich and become a prince and come back and get me, right? He was already rich. He was already at that level, right? And she didn't wait for Heathcliff, who mysteriously came back from America rich. I want to know how.
The movie also stars Flora Robson as Ellen Dean. What did you think of her performance? I thought it was very interesting.
That's what I was saying when I was saying, like, a lot of these other characters, they're characters. They're not just background people that we see again, right? She has a personality. She's involved in the story. And actually, she's the one telling the story, which is also interesting. But no, I liked her. I thought she was well characterized and serves more of a purpose than just being there. Right?
I really like her too, and I like how her character is so telling, even if she really doesn't have a lot of lines. If you think about it, she does talk in the beginning and in the end because she's the one telling the story, but like throughout the movie she only has few lines, but usually very profound, very deep, and that point out what is actually happening.
Because she has a mind of her own, right? And
right.
That's what makes her a more complete character. Her lines are not just like, hey, here's the milk.
And the deep understanding
yeah.
of what is going on. Like, she's one of the few characters in the beginning who knows about Cathy and Heathcliff. To round up the cast that we're going to be talking about today, Geraldine Fitzgerald plays Isabella Linton, whom we've seen before in the movie Dark Victory. What did you think of her performance?
This is as much her, I guess, as it is the makeup and costume crew. But the switch from her previous life as a high society girl to Heathcliff's wife is so striking, right?
Yeah.
It looks like two different people. At the beginning when we saw her, I didn't even realize it was her later on in the flashback, right? Do you follow me?
Yeah, I see what you mean. So in the beginning of the movie, we see her as Heathcliff's wife and she looks miserable, really.
Yeah.
Then when we see her in the flashback as like her young, happy self.
Like, I didn't know there was her, yeah. It's crazy.
I think it's very interesting that we have this character, in the flashback, in the story, that is introduced pretty much halfway through the movie but has such a strong impact. And that you understand right away. Like, after the first two scenes with her, you understand what her character is about. As I have mentioned, the movie is based on a literature classic. However, the movie does not follow the whole story of the novel, only the first half. So there's a whole other half to this story that is completely cut out. And in order to give the movie a finality, an ending, at this point in the story, they actually had to remove a lot of characters. So I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to spoil the book. But what I will talk about is the ending of the movie as we saw it. The meaning that the movie gives to Cathy's hunting Heathcliff to the end of his life is very different in the movie than in the book. Because in the movie we get the feeling that it's this undying love, tamed as it was, that she had for him, and that he followed her into death, essentially. In the original story, though, in the novel, the hunting doesn't have anything to do necessarily with love, but rather it's an extension of that idea of I'm cursing you.
Yeah. But it's the other way around, right? He curses her and, in a sense, himself, right? To haunt me as long as I'm alive. When he says all that monologue at the end after she dies about her staying on as a ghost, he doesn't do it expecting a loving spirit to haunt him, right? He says, like, curse me, make me miserable, right? As long as there can still be her presence there. But he's cursing himself, right?
Right. However, as we already mentioned, you can definitely tell that the movie makes sense on its own, even if you don't know the source material and the differences, which apparently are numerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story in its own, and you understand it.
Yeah.
The story is apparently very popular because this novel was adapted numerous times into different media. To this day, there are 11 film adaptations, 10 TV movie adaptations, 7 TV series, in addition to radio adaptations, operas, theater, and other miscellaneous type of mediums. This story was adapted many times and also in different countries. However, the 1939 movie adaptations that we have just watched is considered the most popular, famous of all of them. In 2007, Wuthering Heights was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And it received many acclamations when it came out, as it was nominated for 8 Academy Awards. First off, it was of course nominated for Best Picture, or Outstanding Production as it was known back then. It was nominated for Best Cinematography Black and White for Greg Toland, which it won. Best Actor in a Leading Role for Laurence Olivier. Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Geraldine Fitzgerald. Best Director for William Wyler. Best Writing Screenplay for Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur. Best Art Direction for James Basvi. And Best Music Original Score for Alfred Newman. Many nominations, 1 win. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about in regards to this movie?
No, I think we went around pretty much everything.
Yes, I agree. So that being said, would you recommend this movie?
I would. Again, I reiterate my initial thoughts. Very interesting movie. Go watch it.
I definitely recommend it too. I think it's very interesting to watch a movie where the main characters are not necessarily the good characters. That always makes for a great story, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the director of Jezebel, right? There was another one like this.
And with that, I think it is time now for us to move on to the ranking of this movie. As you might already know, every year we are ranking the movies nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Award for that year according to our likings and preferences. And our ranking for the year 1939 as of now is at number 7, Ninochka, at number 6, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, at number 5, Goodbye Mr. Chips, at number 4, Dark Victory, at number 3, Stagecoach, at number 2, Love Affair, and at number 1, Of Mice and Men. Where, Rick, would you put Wuthering Heights on this list?
I'm thinking number 2.
I was thinking number 1.
Oh.
And I thought that you would think number 2. So let's debate. And I will tell you, I can go first. My main reason for thinking that this would be at number 1 is because Wuthering Heights has more characters that are more complex and better highlighted, in my opinion, than Of Mice and Men.
Yeah, so these are two different movies, right? So it's kind of hard to compare, but Of Mice and Men does an incredible job with a story that on its own is not that complicated, right? It's very easy to understand, but as soon as you dig a little deeper, there is so much meaning behind everything that happens, right? Every character, all of their backstory, all the way they're acting can be analyzed 100 different ways to showcase what the movie is trying to showcase.
And now that you mentioned this, also a really well delivered, much more complex message through this simple story. It's a movie that makes you think.
Yeah, exactly. While here we have more of a character movies, right?
Right.
And so it's interesting in a sense like, oh, these characters are interesting and the things that they do and the way they act. But I felt like Of Mice and Men also have very interesting characters, but their actions can be analyzed way more, right? It's a bit less on a surface level.
Right, it goes deeper. Okay, I think I will give it to you. Wuthering Heights goes at number 2. So, the new ranking of the 1939 Best Picture Academy Awards nominees is at number 8, Ninochka, at number 7, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, at number 6, Goodbye Mr. Chips, at number 5, Dark Victory, at number 4, Stagecoach, at number 3, Love Affair, at number 2, Wuthering Heights, and at number 1, Of Mice and Men. And if you have also watched the 1939 movie Wuthering Heights, you can let us know what you thought about it by commenting in the comment section below, but also by rating it on our website. The link is in the description box below. We have watched this movie as part of our bucket list goal to watch every Best Picture nominee from 1927 to 2028. To this day, we have watched 105 movies as part of this list. And the next movie that we're gonna be watching is The Wizard of Oz. Oh. So if you want to follow us through this goal, I invite you to go watch the movie and come back for our next review. But if you don't want to miss that review, you can go ahead and subscribe to this channel right now. Also give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And don't forget, if you yourself have a goal or a dream that you would like to realize, take that first step.
Bye.